Right now, science is in the middle of a massive psychedelic renaissance. But there's this central puzzle that's been nagging researchers. How can one substance make you see kaleidoscope-like patterns, but also spark a life-changing insight? How can it both relax your mind and, at the same time, create these intensely real hallucinations? Well, today we're diving into a brand new theory that tries to solve this very puzzle. And honestly, it might just change how you think about reality itself. I mean, really think about it for a second. Psychedelics can make you see geometric patterns, feel this profound sense of cosmic connection, or even make you believe you're talking to some kind of higher power. How does one little molecule produce such a vast and often contradictory range of experiences? To even begin to answer that, we're going to need a solid model of what's actually going on inside the brain. You see, if we want to truly harness the therapeutic potential of these compounds and, minimize the risks, we need a really good scientific model. And for a long time, there's been one leading theory that has pretty much dominated the conversation. And that is the REBUS model. So imagine your brain has this set of really powerful pre-existing beliefs about how the world works. It's like a filter or your brain's best guess. REBUS suggests that psychedelics basically just turn the volume way down on that filter. This allows more raw, unfiltered sensory data from your eyes and your ears to flow upwards, which could explain that feeling of childlike wonder or seeing the world in a totally new light. But here is the puzzle, right? A lot of psychedelic experiences don't feel like your beliefs are getting weaker. They feel like incredibly strong, vivid, and compelling new beliefs are being formed. Think about a powerful hallucination or a world-shattering insight. That doesn't really sound like a relaxed state, does it? It sounds like the brain is creating something brand new and intensely real. A purely REBUS model feels a bit more like a dissociative state, not a mind-manifesting one. So, this sets up a fascinating conflict, a real scientific debate. Are our beliefs being relaxed, or are they actually being strengthened? Well, a new paper from Safron and his colleagues suggests the answer isn't quite that simple. To try and solve this puzzle, the researchers bring in a counter theory they call SEBUS, which stands for Strengthened Beliefs Under Psychedelics. This model suggests that psychedelics can also do the exact opposite of REBUS. They can actually strengthen the brain's internal predictions, making our inner world way more powerful than the sensory data coming in from the outside. And this just elegantly explains hallucinations, where we end up seeing what our brain expects to see, not what's actually there. Okay, so this image does a great job of showing these two competing ideas. On the far left, you've got a normal brain, where the top-down predictions, those are the red arrows, are pretty well balanced with the sensory data coming up from the world, which are the gray arrows. Now, in the REBUS model, down at the bottom, those red predictions get weaker, which lets more of that gray sensory data in. But in the SEBUS model, up at the top, those red predictions get stronger, basically overwhelming the senses. So the big question is, which one is it? And the paper offers this really powerful analogy to bridge the gap. It says that psychedelic experiences are kind of like waking dreams. You know how sometimes dreams are fuzzy and chaotic, and other times they're hyper-real and incredibly vivid? Well, what if psychedelics can induce that entire spectrum of dreamlike states, but while we're wide awake? And this idea leads us to the hero of our story today, a new unifying framework that the researchers call ALBUS. ALBUS, which stands for Altered Beliefs Under Psychedelics, says we don't have to choose between relaxing our beliefs or strengthening them. Psychedelics do both. They can strengthen some beliefs while relaxing others, and this delicate balance can shift depending on the dose you take, your mindset, and even which specific part of the brain we're looking at. It's not an either-or situation. So how does this actually work? Well, this slide shows how our brain builds what we call our mind's eye, our conscious reality. Think of it like a radio receiver. It's using different brain waves, like alpha and beta, to tune into information from our senses, and then stitch it all together into a single, coherent experience. The key idea here is that psychedelics can basically hijack this process, messing with how those brain waves work and fundamentally altering the reality that we perceive. So, how does the ALBUS model explain the wild journey of a psychedelic experience? Well, it turns out it all comes down to the dose. This slide really gets to the heart of that whole waking dream idea. The top row is sensation. That's what you see from the outside world. The bottom row is imagination. That's your inner world. Now, as we move from left to right, increasing the dose, just look at what happens to the brain patterns in that far right column. They become almost identical. And this is the key takeaway. At high enough doses, the brain activity for just imagining something can become indistinguishable from the brain activity for actually seeing it. Okay, so let's take a trip up the dosage curve and see how this ALBUS model maps onto what people actually experience. All right, so at the lowest doses, like a microdose, the model shows only really subtle changes in the top rows here. Things might just seem a little bit clearer, maybe a little more vivid. Then, as you move up to a threshold dose, you might start making more creative connections. Your brain starts linking ideas together in new and unusual ways. But at a medium dose, things get a whole lot more interesting. If you look at the medium dose section here, the model shows our imagination becoming way more vivid. The images that represent your thoughts, they're getting more colorful, more complex. This is that sweet spot where the boundary between your inner and outer worlds really starts to dissolve. And finally, at the highest heroic or extreme doses, the model predicts a really radical shift. Just look at how the thought sequences at the top here become shorter, more fragmented. This helps show how our stable sense of self can begin to break down, which helps to explain these profound experiences like ego death, where the very concept of you just seems to dissolve away. So we have this new unified theory, ALBUS. And yeah, it's a fascinating model of the brain, but why does it actually matter? Well, the answer is that this more nuanced understanding could totally revolutionize how we approach mental health treatment. This model gives us a much more precise toolkit. So, for example, with depression, therapists could maybe use a low-dose SEBUS effect to strengthen a patient's positive self-beliefs. Or they could use a high-dose REBUS effect to relax those rigid negative thought patterns. It allows us to target very specific psychological mechanisms, and that could make these therapies way more effective. And that leaves us with one final kind of mind-bending thought. The reality that you and I experience every single day is built by this delicate dance between our brain's predictions and the data from our senses. So if these substances can show us that this balance can be profoundly altered, that the very line between our inner and outer worlds can be completely redrawn, what does that tell us about how real reality is? It suggests that the world we perceive isn't just a passive reflection of what's out there, but an active, and maybe more importantly, an alterable creation of our own minds.